This is Technical Writing Uncensored. I'm here with API writer Robert Delwood. Welcome back, Robert.
Diana, good to be back.
We're chatting about AI and API documentation, and you have some thoughts.
I do. I don't want to go on the record as saying I'm going to make predictions about the future. I'm not good at that. What I am going to talk about is some observations I've made in the last few months about AI, and I think its impact on our writing industry. Now, specifically, it'll be the API documentation aspect, but I'm sure it's could be generalized enough for that. So I noticed a couple things. I noticed three things happening, three trends happening at the same time. So number one, my background is as a developer. So I'm a developer turned writer, and I still do a lot of programming, both at work and at home. And I will admit, AI has changed the way I program. It's revolutionized the way I program. All I have to do now is ask AI to write a routine for me, and it does it, and I can put it in. It reduces typing a lot, but it saves time. It knows libraries. It knows the interaction. But I noticed the other day, and this is key. So I use C# and .NET, which means a lot of my information comes from MSDN, specifically MSDN.com, as a source of truth for that. So, for instance, if I need a routine that does a drag and drop, chances are it's coming from MSDN. But what I noticed was I don't remember the last time I was actually on MSDN.com. I was going exclusively through AI. Write this for me. What is the third parameter? If I want to only send it only to a printer, what do I need to do? Those are all things traditionally that you would go to the MSDN for, and more generally, you would go to the API documentation source for. But I'm not doing that now. So I've asked around about my developer friends. I watch them at work do it, and I would say good 90% are using only some form of AI, ChatGPT, Claude, that to get their information from, which brings me to my second conclusion, that we're not going to the site anymore. And
by we, you mean developers?
Developers, I'm sorry. Developers are not going to the site anymore. We're not going to MSDN. We're not going. I use Readocly a lot. I can't remember last time I was actually on the Readocly site asking questions. So the implication there is I think the platforms are not going to be as important going forward. It's the information, the content that's important. So the second of my observations in this is I'm on a lot of writers' forums, and I follow their conversations and whatnot. And there are still a lot of conversations focusing on platform. Conversations, which platform is better, README or Mintlify. And there's a lot of talk about how to optimize these tools. And that's a good question. So those are good questions. It is the tool that you're using right now, and you need to become experts in them. So you need to know how to optimize for these tools. However, stepping away from the techniques a little bit, you get to the arguments about which platform is better. And I don't think those are going to be as helpful anymore going forward on this. Like I said, they're not hitting the platforms anymore. So it may not matter in as little as two years from now what you use to publish the information to the web. So people are arguing which is better. Anyone that don't over-identify with your tool, don't think that just because you're using one tool or another, it's the best way, it's the better way. You don't get proprietary about the tools you're using. So it moves it into the content now. So when developers ask for a routine that does X, Y, and Z, AI is getting the information from somewhere, and it's synthesizing it, and it's coming back with the information. So that somewhere still has to be our docs. Now, if you talk about C#, there is a very large corpus of information. There are a lot of sites dedicated to C#, and there's a lot of writers writing about specific aspects of C#. So in that case, yeah, there's a lot of other places it might be getting it. But let's go ahead and look at these smaller sites. I like Redoc.me, for instance, and compared to C#, there are a lot fewer sites that are talking about Redoc.me, and specifically even fewer sites that are talking about what an enum value does, or how you can use it, or how you can synthesize various flags in a command line. And let's go one step further from that. And you work for a company that has a unique API. No one else in the world has made this API, and there's no one else writing about it. Though that's an easy case. The information that the AI is getting comes only from that one site. So putting those two together, I'm concluding that platforms are becoming less important. Platforms are just a means to an end. They come and go. Platforms 5 years ago aren't the same ones that we have now, aren't going to be the same ones in 5 years. But concentrating on the content, that's the important thing. So I'm trying to get writers to start thinking about improving their content. Now, there's a couple of things I've looked at a lot of APIs. Boy, do I miss the website, the programmable web. Mm-hmm. They had 10,000, 20,000 API sites. And I love looking through them and seeing what people are doing. And it did strike me, for instance, that even though these companies are selling this as their product, they're wanting clients to buy into give them money, the documentation just was not there. The most obvious ones didn't have any fields that didn't have any description at all, no sentences. They were just labeled as string. Some that have one sentence. One is better than none for sure, but one doesn't always describe the developers need to know about the call. So two is better than one, and that progression goes on. So I'm trying to encourage everyone to add content. Add as much content. Don't worry about the form. Worry about the content. Now, I'm a big believer in that this is very pervasive into all documentation, API docs. So starting with the field name, I often see phone number. Well, phone number is good. It tells developers some information, but not all information. Maybe if you renamed it client phone number or destination phone number or emergency phone number, now you've provided a little more information to them. And the biggest kickback I get here, and developers are telling me this, in context they'll know because it belongs, it's a field within a structure called clients. And while that's true, what is the cost of go ahead and clarifying it more? Client's phone number. At a glance, they get a better idea about what's going on. But even client phone number, even knowing that the phone number still isn't enough information, phone numbers probably have the biggest, widest variety of formats. They can go from 7 digits, 10 digits, periods.
Will you break things if you include the hyphens? What if you include
exactly
an end dash?
Signs.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump in here and play devil's advocate a little bit. So let's say that I want to write a block of Python code that uses API calls. And, I'm using ChatGPT or something to help me. There's still a delay in the information from the internet getting into the LLMs for training unless you actually tell it to go to a specific site and look at stuff. So I might not always be able to have the LLM give me a code block with the latest and most correct information. And isn't the website still important for that?
That's a good point. And I'm not the best person to answer that. I don't know how information gets disseminated
Mhm.
from posting it to the website to showing up in Claude. I would like to hear that now that you mentioned. So yes, so your question is valid only if this is the latest, newest information
Mhm.
possible. If I'm doing a website and it's coming uniquely from us, yes, there might be a delay. Yes, you might have to go to the site to visit it. But in soon enough, again, soon enough, I don't know, is a day, a week, 3 months, but eventually it's going to get into the ether somehow. So when I'm doing C#, for instance, I absolutely am not using the newest stuff. I'd be surprised if I ever needed information that just came out, let's say even within the last 3 months. So I've never really encountered, I don't have this information because it's so new. So yes, if you're a dynamic young company, you might want to keep in mind that the website is important. However, it doesn't fully answer your question still. If this is brand new stuff and you're writing code and you want to see it and you want to know how it synthesizes with everything. Again, the information still has to be there. Mm-hmm. If the fields don't have any description at all, you're still out of luck.
Yeah, and that brings me to a point and then a question. Mintlify and probably other platforms have started adding a drop down where you can basically copy everything on a particular page and send it to a particular LLM. So some sites and platforms are trying to make it easy to get whatever you're looking at into the LLM so you can interact with it with the AI.
That is cool. I've not heard about that yet.
And I know that you can also enter a website so you can send your chatbot to go look at it. But what does this mean in terms of writers writing? I mean, we've known we need to write for AI as well as regular humans for a while now, but how does that affect what we do? I mean, you talked a bit about making sure that fields have enough description to be useful and such, but how do we also adapt to this, this changing in the way that developers are working and interacting with APIs?
So I have two seemingly opposite approaches to this. So I believe that you write to humans first and not to computers. And that I know that sounds like I'm contradicting what I just said, but what I mean, and this follows up, this supplements what I just said, in that you explain it before they get to program with it. They have to understand what they're doing. They have to run it. They have to read it. They have to know what the call does. They will probably run it in Postman or a testing tool a couple times to see what variables and fields they need. So before it gets to computers, it has to get by a human. So going back to field names, one of the other pushes I get back is, well, even if even field is not logically named, NDAP is my favorite one. I worked at a company. It was documented. We know what it did, but no one could tell me what actually NDAP actually meant, the word meant. But the pushback is, once you program a computer to go to a JSON structure and pull the NDAP value, it's going to do it. So it doesn't need to know what NDAP means. We just point it there. And that's true. But a programmer has to write the code to know what DAP. So that's what I mean. You have to write to humans first. And that goes like the good field names. I have a variation of, everyone's heard of docs as code. My approach is code as docs, where for instance, I just looking at the return JSON field, because the field names are so clear from the JSON, they have a fighting chance to understand what everything does. And that goes into another one of my theories, that you can have documentation so good that they don't even have to read it.
So, really?
Well, if they can look at the JSON, at the return JSON, for instance, and it says client phone number, they may not have to look it up. If you keep everything consistent, for example, you want to be consistent in format so they don't have to look up each one. So phone numbers. If you make phone numbers all 164 format with a plus sign at the beginning, 10 digits, 11 digits, and a plus sign for all phone numbers. Now, when they see a phone number, they know what to do because they've seen it before. ISO 8604 formats. Make all the dates the same format, so they don't have to relearn in your one case what that is. So that's what I mean. Docs is code as docs. You're using the actual return values. They're actually things they see on the screen as an extension of the document.
But how do they get the stuff on the screen?
It is returned, for example, if it's returned JSON, it will be returned from the REST call they're making.
But how do they know to make the REST call? What REST call do they need to make?
Yes, then they need the and you're right. At some point, they're going to have to. There's an atomic value. You're going to have to describe the endpoint to them, and there's no getting around that. But again, you can make it you can make it consistent. So the same way that you get a list of users, the same format /users list would be the same way you get a list of documents list. Again, you're using what you've already taught them to their benefit.
What I think I'm hearing is that we want to worry less about what platform we're using to serve up the APIs and a lot more about how to design the APIs and especially field names and such so that they are consistent and clear. And that will benefit both the AI user and the human user that may be getting the content from the website, maybe getting it from the LLM.
So there is a lot. You're right. The scope of this conversation is sort of creeping out right now. No, you're absolutely right, and I have advocated at conferences and in writings I do that the writers have a right to push back. Not a right, it's an obligation. So if we see something that's stupid or doesn't make sense or is confusing to us, we have every right to push back and affect the design of the API. It covers everything from non-traditional concepts that we're actually designers. Developers are very good at writing it, but they're not always in touch with the end clients, and that's what we do. So specifically for that, what I advocate is, I'm sorry, I lost my thought there for 1 second. What was I advocating?
We were talking about API design and writers pushing back when things are unclear or could be done better.
Two good examples about that. So I've seen functions as a writer. I've seen functions or REST calls that are so confusing, I can't make heads or tails of them. And that's a red flag. If I don't understand it, that's good enough for me to push back and say this call doesn't make sense. I don't care what you do, clarify it somehow. And often what I'm meaning is they try and do two functions. They see two functions that are related, read, write, let's say, related except off by a little bit. So they put it into one call. So of the 10 fields, 6 of them apply to only one of them, and the other 4 apply to the others. You see where I'm going with this. Push back. Say there are 2 functions. Let's separate them into two functions. So, and we have every obligation to push back because we are in a unique spot. If you look at the product as a whole as just a mosaic, an old Roman type mosaic with thousands of tiles. Yes, we're specialized in a little bit of those down there, but we are specialized. So we do have an idea of what's confusing, and developers may not see it, and dev revs may not see it, or but we all have our little parts, and there's no reason we can't push back. Now, back to your case, you want some information, you're writing a Python program and you want information and you go to the side. That's exactly what I'm talking about. This is the only place that you're going to get this information. So you go to the site and the information had better be there for you. So if you can go there and ideally it's quickly. You go, keep in mind that developers will never read anything. They only
well, put a pin in that one. Let's talk about that.
they only scan.
Okay.
So if they can go to your site, get the information they need, synthesize maybe 2 or 3 calls to form a workflow, you have a good document. And when it hits the web, when it hits these agents, they're going to get good, crisp answers. They don't care about your platform.
Mm-hmm.
They only care about getting their job done. Anything that gets their job done faster or easier, they're going to like. So that's a very, very good test. If you go to this website and you can get what you need fast, find it, and synthesize it. And if you can't, then that's a very good indication. You go there and it takes you 10 minutes just to find what you're looking for and it's incomplete and you don't know. Another thing I advocate is look for the obvious questions that the devs are going to have. So a very minor example, but I come across this a lot, is I'm reading through people's installs and they installation procedures, and they'll say, oh, make sure you have the latest Java, whatever. Go ahead and put the Java test right then and there. In a terminal, type Java version. They don't have to look it up. Now, they may know it. They may know where it is. They may have done it 1,000 times, but I don't remember what Java, is it hyphen version? Or is it -help? Just put it there.
Yeah.
And the more you do that, in every aspect of the documentation. Now, that was a simple one, didn't have anything to do with programming, but it illustrated the more you help them out. So if they're doing a workflow, shipping, and they say, okay, you need to get the address, the shipping address. Well, if there's a call related to shipping addresses, put it there. See, call XYZ.
All right.
To get that.
And is this going to, do you think, help the human user or the LLM user or both, making sure that all of the steps are delineated, even the obvious ones? I hate the engineers are, everybody knows that. We don't have to mention that. Yeah, that's when I'm like, nah,
that's
totally
always a red flag. Whenever they say it, it means I have to document it. So I don't see. So to answer your question, I don't see a difference between the AI and the end user. AI doesn't really care what's going on. It's not going. It's until the Terminators come around. It's not going to. It's not going to do anything. It's there for our benefit. So it helps out. And I've seen applications, some darn impressive ones too. They will write an entire smartphone application from one sentence. Now, again, the machine has to synthesize a lot of information and has to put together a lot of calls. And again, they may only be getting that calls from your website. Another common example I use a lot is I use Redoc a lot, and I use the CLIs, and I just don't memorize. In my youth, yes, I took pride in memorizing the old Inside Mac poems that thick. I don't have time for that now. So I will use AI, and I'll say I need a CLI that takes this file into JSON and remove all the references. I don't care what the commands are. I don't care where it is. It returns the information, but it returns it as a runnable, copyable, runnable CLI. I click one thing, I paste it into my terminal. It does it.
So and again, I'm going to bring this back to how does this affect what tech writers should do? I mean, does this mean that we should try writing code using LLMs to see what it's like? And how should we adapt to this changing landscape?
At the start, I said there were three observations
Yes.
I've made. The third observation is I don't think a lot of writers are going to see the first two observations. They're not writing code.
Mm-hmm.
They use I use AI a lot in my writing, but sort of as one-off tasks. I'll ask it to grammar check it, or I'll grammar fact check it. It's not really institutionalized. I don't have a tool yet. Developers use it a lot more in their everyday basis. They'll write code, they'll write application. I have always advocated that API documentation writers almost have to be developers at some point. Maybe not when they start, get in, but at some point they're going to have to use their documentation, dog fooding, to write a real application. And I think that's a huge disconnect in this industry. I don't think a lot of writers take that final step. And my feeling is, unless you take the final step, you're not really testing your documentation. You're taking good guesses at what the field would be, and that's gotten us as an industry. It's gotten us to where we are today. But things are changing that may not be good enough. If they were to stop and not even use Postman, I advocate using Postman to document individual calls is, in my mind, an absolute requirement. But it's not the same as using an LLM, AI, to actually write a C# application, an executable, a Python execution, write a program that goes to maps.google and find out where your nearest best friend is living. Something that Maps doesn't do right now. Maybe not as ambitious, right? My favorite test site is Chuck Norris Joke of the Day API.
Fun.
It has four calls. Write an application that handles those four calls. Now you're going to see the weakness in your system. You're going to see that something you never were aware of before is now obviously missing.
Okay.
And that only strengthens. So by doing that, you go back to your document and you add the details. Now, the next time someone comes along and asks Claude to write a C# Chuck Norris joke of the day, it can do it flawlessly the first time because all the right information.
Okay.
So the writers have to make sure the information is there, and the only way you can do that comprehensively is to actually work like a developer. That's what I mean, that we have to think like developers. We have to do what they do.
All right. I think that is a great final thought. If you're going to be an API writer or really any sort of a seriously technical writer, got to think like a developer and like your audience. Dog food your stuff. Make sure it works.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me here on Technical Writing Uncensored, Robert. A pleasure as always.
I enjoy being here.
And everyone, if you enjoyed this content, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. It really helps out the channel. And we'll see you next time on Technical Writing Uncensored. I'm Diana Payton, signing off for now.